Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Let's discuss with author L.A. Logan. On tonight, we are going to finally do our Black History Challenge. Do you remember the challenge? Did you participate in the challenge? Or should I say, are you going to participate in the challenge? If not, or if so, either way, I want you to tune in and listen in because we might learn something new from each other. Are you ready? Are you ready to put your thinking caps on and your learning caps on? All right, let's get into it. Let's discuss. All right, guys, it's finally here, our Black History Challenge reveal. Now, being that I'm an author, I would think that you already know what my challenge or who my person was going to be. But before I get into that, let's recap exactly what the challenge is for those of us who are joining us for the first time and not aware of what the Black History Challenge is. So, my challenge to you was find someone who's made Black history that we do not hear about during this time of the year. I'm not trying to take anything away from those that we've learned about in school, that we've learned about at church, or from family history being passed down, TV programs, or anything like that. I don't want to take anything away from those individuals, but I wanted us to learn about someone that we may not know much about, but they did make Black history in some form or fashion. And again, it's not to take away from anyone who's well known for making Black history. I just wanted to challenge us to dig a little deeper into Black history and learn about someone that we had no clue about. So for me, my person that I chose was Phillis Wheatley. And she was the first African American to publish a book of poems. So that fascinated me because I'm an author. And two, her story was just amazing. Like, coming from an author's perspective, to think about what she had to go through to get her work published and who she later became known as. Just awesome. And so it was so much information. There was no way I was going to remember all of it. So I got to do a little bit of reading. I hope you don't mind. But hey, that's what discussions are about sometimes, right? Right. So Phillis Wheatley was born in 1753. And she, like I said, she was the first African American to publish a book of poetry. And she was born in West Africa. And a businessman took a trip over to West Africa, purchased her, and then brought her back and then sold her to the Wheatley family, who really didn't treat her like a slave per se. I mean, they purchased her, they owned her, but they had their daughter tutor her, work with her with reading and writing. And when they realized how good she was at it, they allowed her to focus on that rather than what slaves were doing at that time, whatever household chores or work that were being assigned. She didn't have to do any of that because of her gifts and talent in reading and writing. So they purchased her, and the Wheatley's daughter helped teach her, but the Wheatley's son is the one who got her work recognized. He took her to London, and he was basically shopping her work to be published. Can you imagine being a slave? First off, no, I can't. Like, I can't even imagine what they went through, especially when I compare it to some of the way the atmosphere that we live in currently and just some of the things that still go on today. I can't even imagine what it was like back then. But she was in a position to where, or should I say, God put her in a position where her owners took up with her to where they recognized her gift and her calling, and they were willing to help her and nurture her with that. So we took her to Boston to help her shop her work and to get her published. And she ended up getting published in September 1st, 1773. I think I have that right. I might have that wrong. Please forgive me if I do. But they got her work published. And what was awesome about the Wheatleys is that once she was published, they could have said, well, we own you and we own your publication and we own everything that has to do with you. They didn't do that. They set her free. So she was emancipated so that she could live and enjoy the fruits of her labor, which I thought was awesome. She went on to get married, and she had children. A couple of them died as babies. She did have some tragedy in her life with that. Her husband went to prison for some stuff, but we ain't gonna focus on him because, hey, we're talking about her and her greatness, okay? So something that I thought was really interesting about her also was she was recognized as one of the most powerful African American women at that time in the literary world because of how great she was at what she did. And it was said that, I got to find this part again because I was really, really it spoke volumes to me. So it was stated in a letter that Wheatley had proved that Black people could write poetry. So can you imagine back then that if you had to hide the fact if you didn't know how to read and write, and it was because they thought you shouldn't be able to read or write. So she's living in that time. Keep this in mind. So for someone to say that is not a slave, a slave owner, to say she proved that Black people could write poetry. That's heavy if you really just sit back and think about that, to be recognized for that. Something else with her was she has some monuments that are named after her that I would have never known this. Excuse me, but I found out in research. She was featured in the Boston's Women Memorial, a 2003 sculpture of Commonwealth Avenue in Boston, Massachusetts. In 2012, Robert Morris University named the new building for their School of Communications and Information Science after Phillis Wheatley. Wheatley Hall at University of Massachusetts, Boston is named for her as well. She has the Boston's Women's Heritage Trail is also, she's commemorated there. The Phillis Wheatley YWCA in Washington, D.C. There is a Phillis Wheatley High School in Houston, Texas. Really? I had no idea. Just excited about this. And then there's a building on Jensen Beach, Florida. Now the oldest building on the campus of the American Legion Post 126, that's named after her. A branch of the Richland County Library in Columbia, South Carolina, which offered the first library services to Black citizens, is named for her. There's a Phillis Wheatley Elementary School in New Orleans that opened in 1954. My mind is just blown by all of this. So, there's a lot more that I could talk about with her, but those were just some of the things that were that just leaped out at me, that the history that she made as an African American woman who during that time you weren't supposed to be able to read or write. And if you did, you weren't supposed to let anybody know that other than your clique, your folks. And so to learn that not only did her owner help her get there, but they also set her free once she was published and was able to make a living for herself. So yeah, my person was Phillis Wheatley. Who did you select for your Black History Month challenge? Did you learn something new? Did you, share it with anyone? Did you talk to anyone else about the challenge? I mean, when you think about Black history and you think about just everything that our culture had to go through to get to where we are today, it really, really, really bothers me when I hear our culture say, oh, well, I'm not going to vote because it doesn't matter. We're coming up on an election year, and Super Tuesday is next week. And, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into your right to be able to vote, your right to have a free mind, your right to be able to read, to write, to go where you want to go, sit where you want to sit, do what you want to do. If you take a moment just to think about it, I know for some it seems like, oh, that was so long ago, I can't relate. No, it wasn't really that long ago. And two, you really need to learn the history, because there are some books who are trying to rewrite history and take slavery out of the books and make it seem as though they were paid for their work. And that's just not how that story goes. So it's imperative that we become as knowledgeable as possible about Black history, and not just during Black History Month, but as often as possible, so that we can pass that information down to generation, so that they'll understand, what all went into their right to be able to live freely and do whatever it is that they want to do, whether they're making good decisions or bad decisions. So yeah, that's what I want to say about the Black History Month Challenge. I will be on the road here soon, and I will be documenting my travels. I'm going to try to do that. That was suggested to me, so I'm going to try to do that. But if this is your first time visiting my channel, welcome. I hope that you enjoy the discussion. If it is not your first time, welcome back. I hope that you would click the subscribe button and click the bell so that you'll be notified when content has been loaded to the channel. And if you've enjoyed the discussion on today, can you please click the like button for me? That just helps me know that, hey, you guys are enjoying what we've been discussing. If you didn't enjoy the discussion on today, oh well, maybe next time. But I do want to leave you with this. The plans for your life have already been designed. It's just up to you to trust the planner. Have a good one, everybody.